Hey guys, Steven here, Fanatic Perspective. We are in Arkansas game week now. Tran, we're here after a season opening win, a stress-free win, 38-18 over the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. Again, we wish them, them, Tulane, LSU, all these Louisiana boys out here, men, women, families, the best as they recover from Hurricane Ida. I know I ran into some people at the game who were in Texas just because they couldn't be home. So, our best wishes with those folks heading back and Billy Napier and his group. But Tran, it feels good to be chatting here, coming off a dub, brother.
It does. It does against a very good team. It's they're not a Power Five team, but they are a very experienced team and a very well coached team, and we
Top
dominated the
25
game.
team.
Yep. hmm
Top 25. Anytime facing a top 25 team, I don't care if you Power 5 or not. If you rank, you rank. And you can
hmm
get the smoke like everybody else. Before we jump into analysis of the Louisiana game, because we're going to do good, bad, ugly, and we're also going to get through our Arkansas prep and offer predictions, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, BUSR, who is the official sportsbook and betting partner here at Fanatic Perspective. You guys go check them out. I know a lot of people have been signing up, putting deposits down, and already making some money from what I'm hearing out there. So busr.com/fanatic. Use that promo code NFL100FP. I'm matching 100% free play. Those of you who listen to our predictions, if you took Steve's prediction, you made money because we covered. I actually put money down on BUSR, so go hit them up today. And you can make your decisions when Tran and I give our predictions for Arkansas, how you feel about it. But all the college football games going on out there. If you watch Penn State, Wisconsin, probably a good idea to take the under in that game, right? So go take advantage of it on us at BUSR. Thank you for sponsoring our content here. So I want to get into Louisiana now that we were at the game, and we it was really cool being in person for Steve Sarkisian's debut, being in person for everybody really coming back to DKR. I feel like we were one of the few people who were out there in 2020, but it wasn't the same, right? Environment wise. So just all the cool stuff. Let's start with the good, Tran. Just overall good. Your takeaway. You've had a couple days to digest the victory.
So first, good was the atmosphere. The stadium wasn't even packed out. I think it was at what 85% capacity, and it sounded better than if it was at 100K. Honestly, the way the end zone is enclosed, I think the acoustics of it is not projecting outwards. So even though the showing wasn't 100% capacity, it was still it was, especially in the heat. Like the heat was really bad. Um, to the game, if we're talking about good running backs, of course. I mean, all the running backs they ate, they were very good. Bijan was as good as advertised, of course. He from a pass catching perspective and also running the ball perspective, he was close to 100 at both of them, right? I think he had 180 something all-purpose yards. Roshan came in and gave him well-needed breather, and then Keelan Robinson came in and popped some big runs themselves. So, very happy with the running back play.
I completely agree. Bijan, he wears the number 5 in honor of Reggie Bush, who was his favorite running back growing up. I think his favorite football player, if I'm not mistaken. And to see him get utilized in the pass game element, and this is something we've keyed in on all offseason since we made the move to Steve Sarkisian, is hey, just seeing what he's done in the past with running backs, and most recently Najee Harris. As much as Najee caught 43 balls last year, that's a lot for a back in a shortened year too. So Bijan Robinson having 4 catches for 73 yards, effectively your second leading receiver. And it wasn't screens, right? It wasn't like, or a quick flare pass, right? these were actual routes. We saw him run a whip route. We saw him get to the corner. We saw him run a wheel out of the backfield where he was wide open. And according to Steve Sarkisian, was able, because he understands the scheme mentally, was able to give feedback to the sideline on something they saw, and they went to it right away, because that's going to lead me to something else. But that's encouraging, right? Is the utilization on both sides, because early in the game, it was a little bit difficult to get things churning. I think you saw later in the game all three running backs, the acceleration when they hit the hole, when Louisiana started to wear down, and that's why you saw Bijan Robinson start to pop some, as explosive as that brother is. So I agree with you all the way across the board. Well done. Job well done by the running backs and Stan Drayton's group. So the next thing I think the next thing I wanted to touch on. So sticking with the offense, coaching. I just mentioned it. So we listened to Steve Sarkisian's presser. He kind of added the tidbit there, and he was responding to a question. But in terms of Bijan kind of seeing something and saying, "Hey, let's do this," and Sark kind of went into a coaching clinic, a little mini clinic, when he alluded to, "Hey, I teach concepts, and our offense isn't so rigid that we're gonna stick to one of," like, he basically said, "Hey, if it's third down and the game's already progressing and I've already gotten enough data, I'm not just gonna pick one of three plays for third down. There's going to be some concept I may add based upon what they're doing to me. So if they're doing something to me, I may say, hey, we can, this play we've been repping all the time. Hey, you just let's add a wheel to this, because that'll screw up their keys. And the players, because they've been trained that way, and it's much more free flowing, I should say, instead of just rigid ass plays, you can do what they did where you get people wide open because they're keying in on certain things. And on a bigger picture, it's refreshing to watch a football team when your team is smarter than the other team. No disrespect to Billy Napier and Louisiana, but when you see them noticing things and making adjustments, we were all frustrated at the beginning of the game with some of the run fits and them getting gashed and all those type of things. Pete Kwiatkowski turned that faucet off with the quickness, right? Immediately, making some adjustments, right? Steve Sarkisian making his adjustments quickly. And that's why the game, it didn't, I don't think we ever felt like, oh man, Louisiana's just exploiting this on us. So I think that's something to be very, very encouraged by as a Texas fan.
Another good, I would have to say the wide receivers, in particular Jordan Whittington. Jordan Whittington was healthy. Knock on wood.
I
He
know.
continues to be that way. He
so
just
good.
looked great. I mean, even that beast mode run that he had, where he dragged two or three Cajuns about 20 yards to the 6 or something like that. He just looked good, and he was also that safety blanket. I think there was 3 catches that he had on third down conversions, which were huge, and they weren't really good placed balls. That he just dove out for him and he caught him. So I thought the pass catching ability of our team was very good, and it was very refreshing to see that. We saw Xavier Worthy catch just a go route, which was actually probably an even better pass. I think when we watched it in replay on Hudson Card's part, but we saw a little bit of the young guy get some run as well. So I was extremely encouraged by that.
Piggybacking on the quarterbacks, because I think the receivers, I'm just encouraged by the fact that they had a solid rotation of the same people in there. I know Joshua Moore and Xavier Worthy didn't really have much going statistically, but Tran, I've pushed back on you about yards before, because you're like, hey, I think this guy can get 700 yards. Hey, I think this guy can get 800 yards. And I'm like, I need 1,000-yard receivers. Me and you have had that back and forth before. Jordan Whittington gets you 110 yards. If you're able to get that consistently week over week, the way we saw with Devin Duvernay a couple of years ago, then that's when you get your 12, 13, 1,400-yard receivers over the course of a full year. Days like that, and having that consistency of being a real go-to guy in an explosive offense. Now, we didn't throw the ball that much either. We threw I think we had 26 attempts as a team, or 25. I think it was 26 attempts as a team. So there's going to be some games where we're in the 30s and 40s throwing the football, and other guys will get opportunities to put up more yardage. But you have to feel really good about that. Finishing up on the offense, quarterback play. Here at Fanatic Perspective, we've told you guys before, repeatedly. If you follow me on Twitter, you know where I'm going with this. Your quarterbacks, Hudson Card and Casey Thompson, are two of the better football players on your team. We've been beating that drum. This is why we almost had Casey Thompson in the top 10, because you saw when they got to the game. And here's the thing, the practice reports reflect what the coaches, with some of that input and what they want the public to know, right? Steve Sarkisian has said repeatedly he coaches quarterbacks harder than any other position. So what looks bad to him, or they have a bad practice or a bad day, it's subjective to somebody else, right? And his expectations of what he's looking for from his quarterback. Mac Jones played quarterback as well as anybody. He was up there with the Joe Burrows and the Cam Newtons and all of the last 10 years. He was outstanding last year. Tua Tagovailoa was just the same way the year before that. That's his expectation level of what he wants production-wise from a quarterback. So I think behind the scenes, when he was grading Hudson Card and when he was evaluating Casey Thompson, that's the standard he's grading them against. So if we're getting 80% of that, right? Like if you're getting a certain percentage of that, Texas is going to be a championship game if they're getting that type of quarterback play. Because we're going to get to the offensive line, and newsflash, they're not in the good, okay?
Spoiler.
But the fact that Hudson Card was 11 of 13 for 176 yards and 2 touchdowns on the times he actually had a clean pocket, so no pressure, right? I don't think he had an incompletion that wasn't a throwaway that was under 20 yards. That's remarkable efficiency for somebody in their first real live bullets, real live start against a top 25 opponent. How are you not fired up about that as a Texas fan? And then at the end of the third quarter, you bring in Casey Thompson. The game's not out of reach, but the game was completely under control. And Casey Thompson goes, what? Right down the field and throws a touchdown pass to Jordan Whittington. And you know what was even more beautiful about that? When Casey Thompson is running to the sideline, granted, yes, Hudson Card is the holder, but Hudson Card was the first person to greet him, and they hugged each other when they came off the field, because these guys have developed a relationship within the quarterback room. Yes, over the summer, fall camp, we compete, right? I'm trying to be the starting quarterback. You trying to be QB1. Let's go. They're not going to be buddy. But once we go into battle during the season, we are one room. We are one position room. And that's the thing, Trey, I think you're not with me because like we've been saying, you got to root for Texas quarterbacks. And the kids get that. Because for Hudson Card to be Casey Thompson's biggest cheerleader, that's a good sign for our culture. Or am I looking too far into those kind of things?
No, it's a great sign for our culture, especially since Sarkisian came in saying he wants to run this like a professional organization. We're not going to have. He doesn't want any of those. Oh man, he won it, so or he got the touchdown. Whatever, he's my competition. I'm not going to even focus on it. No, you iron sharpens iron. So if you do well, that's good for the team. So seeing that was extremely refreshing. And not only that, later on down the line, when it is Hudson Card's team, he's already established as that leader that everyone will follow.
That's a leadership
too.
quality.
Yeah.
Great point on Hudson Card's part. I agree. That's a great point, because leadership is not just yelling at people and being rah-rah. If you're genuinely running up to somebody and showing them encouragement, even without saying anything, you don't tell me that the rest of the team didn't see that? Like, those dudes competed their asses off against each other, pushed each other, accelerated each other's progress, and look at them. And here's the thing, during the week, when you're going to game week, like we're going to Arkansas, that's when you're in the room, you're now comparing notes with each other, right? You're saying, hey, Casey Thompson, he wearing a headset. Hey, Hudson, I'm seeing this. Hudson Card, hey, Casey, I'm seeing this. Like, that's the relationship you're looking for as a team. Now, if you follow me on Twitter, you know that I was somehow inside Steve Sarkisian's mind because we have been making the comparison because of Steve Sarkisian, like, hey, when has he had to deal with quarterback competitions? And we looked at Matt Leinart, the younger guy, versus Matt Castle, the older guy who was expected to take over for Carson Palmer. They ended up going with the younger guy because they were even, and how that worked out. And I woke up this morning, and this is where my thought came from. I woke up this morning and I was just going through stuff again, and I'm like, this smells more like Tua and Jalen Hurts in 2018. When Tua had already taken over the national championship the year before, but Jalen started every game. And Steve went into more detail about it in his press conference after I'd already tweeted it. And I'm like, wow, I was really like, we were really, connected there, right? There was some synergistic energy. But the point being is, I love what Steve Sarkisian said about, I learned that from Nick Saban. Because Steve Sarkisian wasn't there. Steve Sarkisian came in, he took over as the OC. I mean, I guess he was the analyst, if you will. He came after he got fired from the Falcons. So he saw things going on, but he really didn't take over until after Jalen had already kind of go in terms of having overseen the whole offense. But the point is, him being in the building and seeing how Nick Saban handled the situation and the culture, it was a mutually beneficial relationship for everybody. Why? You set expectations up front that both quarterbacks are going to play as much as we possibly can. So Tua knows I'm the guy. I'm not looking over my shoulder, but they're playing Jalen so that they know if something happens, he's ready. The same way Tua played almost every game the year before, even though Jalen was the starter the whole way, because they knew if we ever need something, we can go to Tua. He's ready. So it went both ways. So for Jalen Hurts, he got to stay sharp throughout his whole, even though he wasn't playing. So he then becomes what? The premier college football free agent. The moment that season ended, now he's like ready to go. And we know Oklahoma and Lincoln Riley came knocking at the door. He's the Heisman runner-up the following season, right, Tran? So it's like everyone benefited in that scenario. And guess what? Alabama got to buy time to develop Mac Jones in the background. Just like hopefully Texas can develop Charles Wright. Because next year, Casey Thompson's going to, if I'm North Carolina, because I'm assuming Sam Howell's gone, or any of these other schools, Casey Thompson's my number one target. Right? So if I'm all these other schools that don't have a court, like Tran, I'm not trying to be mean. But right now, who's a better quarterback? If you had to start, would you start Casey Thompson or would you start Haynes King if you're A&M?
With the performance that Haynes King had, Casey Thompson, until Haynes King is reeled in with the whole playbook.
So if we started doing this exercise, and I'm just picking on A&M because it's fun to pick on them, and Brandon's our friend. I know he's watching out there. But Casey Thompson, in my opinion, Casey Thompson would start over Haynes King if they had to go to battle. Now, we can do that exercise with a lot of schools with Casey Thompson. So my point is, he keeps playing, and he plays, and he looks like he did the little bit of time he gets. He's now a premier free agent for the rest of college football. Texas benefits in the immediate because we know if Hudson Card pulls a positive COVID test on a Friday out of nowhere, we have somebody already ready to go. There's no concern.
Great point. The COVID factor of it.
The COVID thing.
I was thinking more so of just an injury or something like that, but that COVID thing is a real issue that's going around. So,
dude, we're Cowboys fans. Zach Martin's not injured, and he pulled a positive COVID test, and now they're saying he probably not going to play on Thursday unless he gets 2 negative tests. That's probably not going to happen. So now the Cowboys are short, right? Yep. So you never know. That's what I'm saying. Like all these teams, you need to have somebody ready to go. So the people hitting me up about frustration that, oh, I want to see one quarterback play, or Hudson Card's looking over his shoulder. If you're setting expectations with the kids up front, there's nothing to look. Tua was not looking over his shoulder when Jalen Hurts was playing all the time. Tua still was a Heisman runner-up. It's just that when Tua got hurt and then Tua wasn't playing well in the SEC championship game, Jalen Hurts was no problem.
Ready
I'm
to go.
healthy. I can take it. That's team. That's what Nick Saban did at Bama. So I'm just saying I'd rather be on the side with Nick Saban and Steve Sarkisian in terms of how they approach handling quarterback situations like this. Because this is a one-year issue for Texas. Because next year, you're assuming Hudson Card is the guy.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have Malik Murphy coming in that you can develop. And by then, Charles Wright should be good enough to be able to play in a game if you need him to, right? So now your quarterback's room stabilized. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Let's get to the bad.
Wait. Can we do the one good about the defense that we?
Oh, I'm sorry. We left out some good. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of good from this game. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the defense, the thing that we really circled was the fact that not missing tackles. They missed a total of 8 tackles the game, and 3 of them came from one play, which was it was towards the end of the game where they caught it out and they missed it for a touchdown. It was 3 missed tackles right there, but those 8 missed tackles would have been the lowest of last 2 seasons. So them getting it in the first contact, I think it's very, very reassuring from the coaching standpoint that that their thought process and everything of making sure keeping the ball in front of them, making sure not giving up the big play, making sure that you're on assignment football. It's sitting in with the. Well, I mean, they're all seniors, so it should be that way. So I was extremely happy about that.
I agree, and just the play of DeMarvion Overshown and Luke Brockermeyer, they just got better and better as the game went on, gelling with each other. I even liked how they blitzed, and not every time did they, sometimes they overrun, all this type of stuff, but just the aggressiveness and they were connected as well. Same type
They look fast.
And the same type of symbiotic energy that we had with that was mentioned with the quarterbacks. They have that there in the linebacker room as well, and that's very, very promising to see. I also like the fact that when other people were getting subbed in, the tackling didn't fall off. Darian Dunn came in and got a forced fumble, right? Had on ball, just formed tackle.
David Benda had 3 plays in a row where where he's tackling.
David Benda came in, got tackles. Jalen Ford subbed in. I noticed it right when Jalen Ford came in to give Brockermeyer a breather. He makes a tackle on open field right off the bat, no issue. Gofu tackled well. Deshaun Jameson from the corner position played physical for his body type, tackled as well as he could. So BJ Foster tackled. I mean, there's a lot of guys that were encouraged in terms of just overall where they ended up, and to the coaching again. The defensive adjustments were good. Anytime you're holding a football team, a top 25 team with an experienced quarterback under 20 points, that's a win.
Huge
for
win.
I mean, in terms of grading in your room, you have to take it. The special teams, I think we're going to debate this one. You have special teams as a good.
I do, and the only bad that came from it, from my standpoint, was that missed 42-yard field goal. We had a block field goal, which the last block field goal I could think of was USC.
Blocked it was extra point.
Extra point. We forced a miss field goal. We did return a punt, but it was called back off of a holding penalty. And huge things were the 2 onside kick recoveries. The surprise one was the good one. I think it was BJ Foster that recovered that one. But it was to the point where even Sark mentioned it in his presser that that was a huge win for us with special teams. Special teams was extremely important in this one. So that's why I wrote it down as a good. Like I said, the negative was that 42 miss, but he came back and drilled a 49er. I mean, so And his punting capability, the last punt, he had 2 punts, I think. The last one he was under pressure, and he still got it off, and it's still a fair catch punt. So he did a good job from that standpoint.
Yeah, he punted well. And I agree with you on the onside kicks. I mean, that's why you pay Jeff Banks the money you pay.
Sure.
Or one of the
Sure.
reasons. One of the reasons you pay Jeff Banks the money you pay him. Shout out to Coach Banks. All gas, no brakes. When I think of all gas, no brakes, he literally is the living embodiment of all gas, no brakes. Shout out to Jeff Banks. But from what we've heard is Jeff Banks keyed in on whether it was a tendency or a point in the game. He's like, hey, I'm putting in an alert for a surprise onside. Be aware. And they executed perfectly. Shout out to BJ Foster for paying attention to the alert that was put in. That's why you're on Hans' team. And they executed. And then the onside, the second one, you got to get the ball. They get it. That's literally the goal of Hans' team, right? So great job across the board. It's hard. My frustration with just outright saying special teams is good is, again, going back to what expectation level do you have for these groups? I have very high expectation level for special teams. That was one of our 5 things we put up there. And yes, all the things you highlighted, awesome. The punt return. Deshaun Jameson's had too many. He's had too many punt returns now over the last 3 years. Kick returns, punt returns, where we get called on stuff. And it's frustrating. And I think I'm just saying this as a bad because I want to transition into bad. This is a bad. And like it's 26 minutes into the video and we're just not getting to bad. That's amazing, by the way, for Texas football. But they've got to figure out a way to clean up the blocking on special teams because we're wasting an all-timer of our careers for returns in Deshaun Jameson. I just think it's unfortunate. Because who knows what the score would have been if that punt return counts, right? Like maybe that blows the thing open right there because no bigger flips and momentum happen than return touchdowns like that. And then I'm surprised you're not harder on Cameron Dicker about him missing the field goal. You normally, all, but the 44-yarder, I know Steve said he rushed it. But this is what we're talking about, man.
You can't rush it. I agree with you. And we talked about that earlier in a previous video that for him to be great, he has to be consistent on those makeable field goals. I'd say anywhere 45 to 35-yarder range.
45 and in.
Yeah.
Unless there's some sort of weather issue, which there
needs to be out.
But there was no weather issue to affect the kicking game.
Mm-hmm.
45 and in should be automatic, damn near automatic for Dicker.
Mm-hmm.
Let alone missing the first attempt because you rushed it. Again, levels of expectation and where do you place them? If this is freshman year Cameron Dicker, I'm willing to excuse it. You've been here too long. Go through your routine. Take your damn time. Kick the football. I can't excuse that anymore. The other bad we have is just penalties all the way around. They got to clean that up. I don't have that as an ugly because it's game 1.
Yeah.
And it didn't, they were actually on offense. They were able to still overcome some really, crazy 3rd and longs, which is really encouraging as well. The 4th and 6, I guess you can put that as a positive for Hudson Card, him making it happen with his legs. But the penalties are just got to clean up those things. I mean, again, you have special players like a Bijan Robinson, a Jordan Whittington, Xavier Worthy's going to create plays downfield. I don't want those guys getting restricted by stuff happening for holding and just little things that need to be cleaned up. So if we can do a better job in the penalty area, I will be encouraged.
And another bad that I have for it is gap assignment for the defensive line. And this is where we go into the expectation thing again. We have the highest expectation of our defensive line. And for them to kind of gash us up the middle for a big chunk of the game, it's something that I thought wouldn't have happened. And going into our next opponent, which they like to run in between the tackles, they like to be a physical running team. If we don't shore that up now, it's going to be a rough day.
Yep. And that we'll get into that, a lot more of those details in the art review. I do want to mention the ugly. The offensive line, and this is, Hook'em Headlines tweeted this earlier. Shout out to Tarek and Andrew and all those guys over there. Third worst grade, I believe, as a group in FBS. I think that's according to PFF. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. The pass blocking was frustrating. Hudson Card was pressured on 13 of his 26 dropbacks. It's 50%. Run blocking. Now, I agree with the brothers that were sending in messages during the live on Saturday night that Louisiana was throwing out a lot of different run blitzes. I did see those as well. Sure, I'll give you some leeway there in terms of, having, because those are adjustments that Kyle Flood kind of has to make on the fly to see where like a random nickel is coming from or whatever. Get all that. But there's nobody I can point to on the offensive line where I was encouraged by their play. I mean, I guess you could say they got better throughout the game, sure. But I also think with the heat and you guys just being way bigger than Louisiana, you wore on them, which I guess is a positive. But I was very, very. They have work to do. They have work to do, and I thought at points in the game it was ugly.
Which makes me so thankful for our running back room, because for them to go off the way that they did while being hit in the backfield and breaking tackles, I think we're. I hope there's a stat out there. I'm sure there is, that of how many tackles that Bijan broke this game, because I'd like to see that. I'm sure they have the yards after contact listed somewhere in the stats, but I didn't look that up. But just for us to even have close to a 200-yard rushing output, it's extremely impressive, because the offensive line was getting pushed back. We weren't even on run blocking. We weren't getting a push on the ball. It looked like it was stalemated right at the line of scrimmage, and it's concerning to me. It's extremely concerning going into a SEC defense, going against an SEC defense, and then going into conference play after Rice. So if we're not utilizing our strength and utilizing leverage and our technique, because I know they're teaching them technique. Kyle Flood's a phenomenal coach. That something needs to be fixed.
Completely agree. And let me say this. They're playing some big dudes. They're playing some big dudes, and we're going to cover that during the Arkansas preview. And they don't have time. There's not a Kent State coming in here or a Duquesne where you have the get right game and get people's confidence up.
Mm-hmm.
And not only are you facing an SEC opponent, but you're facing them on the road. So from a communication standpoint, across the board, they have a lot of work to get done this week, because again, Hudson Card, his confidence level should be going up, but it's his first road start. It's going to be his first road start in a hostile environment. They've got to play better, and his pocket awareness is coming along. I even saw improvements in the game than what I saw him do in the spring. That's good. Offensive line, God help us out here, because we can put up. So I think we can make some big explosive plays if given the opportunity. The last ugly was the heat. Brother Tran, I'm so happy you made it through it. I was worried about you.
I was good. I was just like, I'm taking a break at halftime. I'm going inside. That's what I said. I was like, this shit is not good for me. I'm sweating. I need some water.
Dude, it's funny because I've never been in a situation where I went to a beer vendor and he had plenty of beer and no water.
Mm-hmm.
Never seen that before in to where people were taking some of the ice out of his bucket just to throw it back. That heat was brutal, dude. And we can't. We got to get out of the 3:30. Any midday kickoff business in August or September. Get out of that business, Texas, please, because I'm
It's
gonna end with
irresponsible.
this as much as possible, right? Because there's a reason why we don't play football games in this region that we can control, whether it's high school or your kids are starting to get into football. Y'all don't play at that time of day. There's a reason for that. To protect people as well. So a lot of people that watch the game on TV, or you may not understand Texas Heat, or you weren't there. A lot of people saying, "Hey, South End Zone, what's up?" All this type of stuff. I'm so happy Chris Del Conte addressed that, by saying, "Hey, heat was an issue. People had to go stand in the club. Those tickets were sold. People were there. We saw people when we were in the concourse. Concourse was full. That
It was
wasn't a
packed.
problem.
It was packed.
Packed.
The concourse was packed.
It was packed. So I'm convinced that if it was a 6:00 kickoff, Cheeks would have been in seats.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is when the sun is directly hanging over you and it's just blasting people. People that we legit saw get sick too. I'm sorry. I mean, we're being lighthearted about it, but if you weren't there, have some patience with the outlook of it, because I know how it looked on the TV copy, and I saw it in the stadium myself. I'm like, where the hell is everybody at? And then a few minutes later, I'm like, God damn! Like the sun is ridiculous, right? So hopefully we don't have to deal with that the rest of the season. And our next game, Rice and Texas Tech and these teams that come in will, because I agree with you, the atmosphere was really good and the noise was much better. You nailed it there, brother. And I just think that when folks are there and it's reasonable conditions, DKR will be on and popping. But the players, I think Sark even said it too, they got the juice they needed from everybody that was there. Everybody was very engaged. It wasn't any of these things where it was wine and cheese crowd. I didn't see that at all. So I'm very, very encouraged with this. Since we ran long on our Louisiana preview, we're going to make this part 1, part 2. And so part 2 will just be the or our Louisiana recap, I should say. Part 2 will be the Arkansas preview. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video now. But as I end and you guys see this, make sure you hit up BUSR.com, the official sports book, the official betting partner of Fanatic Perspective, BUSR.com/Fanatic. Use promo code NFL100FP. They're matching all free play 100%. There's some happy hours coming next week that they're doing every week where they'll boost odds or have odds boosters for certain key matchups. Only an hour window to take advantage of it. Saturday and Sunday, I'll be able to get information out on when those happy hours are on BUSR. So a lot of cool stuff happening over there. But guys, remember, one's always up.